Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Kris White with the American Battlefield Trust. We have Gary Edelman behind the camera, and this is one of our first videos that's covering the 158th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. But we're not standing in Gettysburg. We're actually standing about 7 miles down the road at the beautiful metropolis that is Cashtown, Pennsylvania. Cashtown, most of you are probably aware of what Cashtown is from the movie Gettysburg. When you see Robert E. Lee coming down to meet A.P. Hill for all of about 30 seconds, they stand in the middle of the road, pointing out and off towards Gettysburg. Hill with his hat kind of shading him from the sun like we have today, and Robert E. Lee heading off towards Gettysburg and off towards destiny there for July 1st through 3rd. But Cashtown is an interesting place, and let's bring the armies up here into Pennsylvania. Let's go from the 50,000 feet down to the 500 feet. So Cashtown behind me, that's the Cashtown Inn. That's what probably makes it the most famous portion here during the Gettysburg campaign. This will be the headquarters for a brief time of A.P. Hill. You'll see John and Bowdoin here, Robert E. Lee's through here, Henry Heath, Johnston Pettigrew. You'll see a slew of Confederate officers coming through Cashtown, as well as nearly 2/3 of the Confederate infantry will come right down this road behind me towards Gettysburg, marching off towards the hamlet of Gettysburg. So Cashtown itself, the Cashtown Inn, is founded in 1797. The story goes the reason why it is Cashtown is because the inn owner would only accept cash. He wouldn't accept credit, and there's also a toll house here because this was a toll road and you could only pay in cash. So that's the story that comes from here. But Cashtown's a small town here in 1863. Now the Confederates come here for the first time actually in 1862. They come here during Jeb Stuart's ride around George McClellan in October. The Confederates will come riding down through the Cashtown Gap, which is just over my right shoulder, and this would have been the road that would have led you in towards Gettysburg. So we would have had Confederates up here into this area in October of 1862. If you read the papers throughout the Civil War, because we're so close to the Mason-Dixon line, you're going to hear a lot about rebels coming across the border on more than one occasion. Does it always happen? No. But it happens for sure in October of 1862. They come back in July of 1863, June and July. Then they'll be here in 1864, just down the road in Franklin County for the Chambersburg burning that took place in July of 1864. So there's a lot that actually happens near Cashtown and in Cashtown. But to get up here, we have the two armies. They have been facing off against one another at the battles of Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville in December 1862, May of 1863, respectively. After the victory at Chancellorsville for the Confederacy, Robert E. Lee is going to ride south to Richmond, or actually ride the train south to Richmond, and he's going to meet with Jefferson Davis, and he's going to propose a push north into Maryland and finally up into Pennsylvania. This is going to start happening on May 15th, May 16th, 1863, the same day Stonewall Jackson's being buried in Lexington, Virginia. So Lee is not out in Lexington burying his subordinate. He is in Richmond. He's working on the next campaign. To make a long story short, many things are happening here in 1863. There's a siege going on or about to take place in Vicksburg. Ulysses S. Grant is fighting battles near Champion Hill. He's fighting battles at Raymond. He's crossed at Bruinsburg, and now he's going to take Jackson, Mississippi, that capital. We have a siege that will take place down at Port Gibson, Louisiana. And now we're going to have this push here with Robert E. Lee heading up north. Eventually, we'll have what's called the Tullahoma Campaign taking place in Middle Tennessee. So there's a lot of moving parts, and Robert E. Lee knows that if he doesn't get his army moving, that his army might be broken up and sent to other parts of the Confederacy. So he gets as many Confederates as he can together, nearly 80,000 men, and he starts pushing north. He starts on June 3rd of 1863. The Confederates will start moving away from what's called Corbin, Virginia. If you've ever been down Route 2 and 17 south of Fredericksburg, don't blink because you've gone through Corbin, Virginia. It's on the way down to where Stonewall Jackson passed away. The Confederates will then slip out towards Culpeper Courthouse, where we'll have the Great Battle at Brandy Station on June 9th, 1863, that great cavalry action, horsemen on horsemen, and then eventually the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia will slip into the Shenandoah Valley and start moving towards Winchester. We'll have the battles of Second Winchester take place. We'll have the Battle of Martinsburg. Confederate victories under Richard Ewell, who seems to be doing well. Ewell's Second Corps will eventually cross the Potomac River, cross the Mason-Dixon line, go into Franklin County, Pennsylvania, the next county over from Adams, where we're standing, and start making his way towards us. Along the way, his quartermasters, men like John Harmon, will start to take maps and they will start to take books, ledger books, out of the county courthouses to see who owns what, to see where they can send off raiding parties to go and try to collect supplies. Now, Robert E. Lee's General Orders number 72 is not to pillage around here, but there are many things that are confiscated by the Confederate Army. So the Confederate Army will actually eventually come in behind us along what was the modern road, a macadamized road leading in through Cashtown towards Gettysburg. This is just one road over from modern-day Route 30, which will carry you in from Chambersburg to Gettysburg if you've ever approached the town from the west. And on June 26th, we're going to start to see of 1863, we'll see the head of Jubal Early, Lee's bad old man, his division start marching down through here. John Brown Gordon's brigade of Virginians will be coming down, or of Georgians will be coming down through here when they're fired upon by 4 men, some bushwhackers, and they actually mortally wound one of those Georgians. And the Georgians scatter to try to find these bushwhackers, but they never do. Allegedly, a man named Henry Hahn in 1879 will die of a broken heart because he's the man who's supposedly shot one of these Confederates. It took a long time for that guilt to set in, it sounds like. But the Confederates will press down through Cashtown, and they will go towards Gettysburg, eventually entering the town that same day. But along the way, they're going to run into William Jennings and his 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Militia, not to be confused with the 26th Pennsylvania Infantry who fought here, who also have an independent command of cavalry under the command of Robert Bell, the Adams County Cavalry. Eventually gets folded into the 21st Pennsylvania Cav. We'll have other units into this area, but nothing of quality for the Union. We'll have a guy named Darius Couch, or Darius Couch, depending on how you pronounce his name, depending who you are, up in Harrisburg, trying to pull in all this militia from New York. He'll be pulling in militia from Pennsylvania. The New Yorkers said that the Pennsylvanians would raise the prices on them and charge them $1 for a loaf of bread or $1 for a pound of meat, which were exorbitant prices. And they're coming here to help save these Pennsylvanians. But these Georgians who come down through here, they're going to have no pity on the folks here in Cashtown and in Gettysburg. In fact, Jubal Early will push aside the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Militia along the banks of Marsh Creek. 743 of them will scatter to the wind, heading off towards Harrisburg, and Early will eventually go into town, into Gettysburg, where he'll ransom the town, collect supplies, move on towards York, and eventually up towards the Susquehanna, towards the state capital of Harrisburg. Now, fast forward a few more days, June 29th of 1863. Coming right into the Cashtown Inn will be A.P. Hill and his 3rd Army Corps, roughly 17,000 men strong. A.P. Hill is a new corps commander within the Army of Northern Virginia, as is Richard Ewell. And what they're going to do is start bringing the Confederate Army, the head of it, down this road. They'll arrive here on June 29th, and on June 30th, he's going to send a reconnaissance in force, commanded by a guy named Johnston Pettigrew, a North Carolinian, allegedly the smartest man in the Confederacy. He went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So if you're a Duke person, you don't think he's the smartest person in the Confederacy, probably. But Pettigrew is going to move down the road with 3 regiments, eventually pick up a 4th, the 55th Virginia, and move into Gettysburg. He's going to make it to about Seminary Ridge when he sees or hears drums, he claims. But what he starts to see are organized groups of men shadowing him. And those would be John Buford's horsemen, 2,400 or so troopers in Gettysburg. Pettigrew will not engage. He'll actually fall back towards Cashtown and report to Henry Heath, his division commander, a Virginian, and a distant relative of Robert E. Lee. And he will report to A.P. Hill of what happened out in front. Hill and Heath will decide to send another reconnaissance into Gettysburg the next day on July 1st. And that's how we'll have the Battle of Gettysburg start to take place here. Now, this road's important behind us because this is where the bulk of the Confederate Army will arrive. We'll also have another 1/3 of the Confederate Army infantry, the 2nd Corps, told to come down from the Harrisburg area. Remember, we had Jubal Early move through here. Eventually, we'll have other Confederate 2nd Corps troops move through this area up towards Harrisburg. They think they're going to take the capital, and then Robert E. Lee says, no, we need to concentrate. We need to bring our army back together because the Union Army has disengaged from the Fredericksburg line under the command of Joe Hooker. Joe Hooker has screened or kind of shadowed the Confederate Army. He's blocked their access to Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, but then he's going to lose his job. George Gordon Meade will take over on June 28th of 63, and Meade's the one who's starting to send troops, Union troops, into Pennsylvania. So Lee decides that he needs to bring his army together somewhere, and he decides it'll be here at Cashtown. So he tells his men, come here to Cashtown. Why are we gonna come here to Cashtown? It's not because of the opulent inn that's behind us. It's because he wants to make sure that he can protect his supply line, which is running up from Richmond out to Staunton, down the Shenandoah Valley or up the Shenandoah Valley, depending on what part of the valley you're from.
Oh man, if you make mistakes in the valley, people just destroy you, and they're gonna tell you it was Stanton.
Yeah, Stanton, Staunton, that. It's gonna move up, they're gonna move up the valley, across the Potomac, and then eventually across the Mason-Dixon line. So this is gonna be his supply line, his communication line with Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy. So he wants to make sure that he keeps that open. He also wants to make sure that if he needs to fall back, those mountains will make a perfect place to fall back, put up a defensive line, and allow the Union Army to attack him. But ever the aggressor, Lee is going to start bringing troops in from the north of Gettysburg. That'll be Richard Ewell's 2nd Corps, about 20,000 men strong. He'll tell them they can either congregate at Gettysburg or Cashtown. Now, on June 30th, Ewell says, I'll come to Cashtown. But then on July 1st, he hears the sounds of the guns, and he sends 2 of his divisions down towards Gettysburg. And those will be Robert Rhodes' division, who comes up on Oak Ridge around noon, and then Jubal Early's division, making their 2nd foray to Gettysburg. A 3rd division is actually coming down the Black Gap Road, and that is commanded by Edward Allegheny Johnson. Johnson is going to make a circuitous route from the Harrisburg area down to Scotland, Pennsylvania, and then down what is modern-day Route 30 and then eventually Old Route 30. What he's going to do is he's going to come into this direction because he has all of the supply wagons, all that great booty and plunder that the Confederates had captured in Pennsylvania. He has those. And if they have to fall back, what Ewell wants to do is make sure they're on the right side of the mountains, the side of the mountains where the Union are, and they're closest to getting into the Cumberland Valley, which can lead down to the Shenandoah Valley. That's what the plan is. Unfortunately, Johnson on July 1st is needed, and he's going to come right down this road. Let's take a walk across the road here, Gary. Very carefully. You're the American Battlefield Trust. We hope you share this with your friends, with your family. So this road that you're looking at, let's swing this way first.
Sorry about the sun, y'all.
You're looking down towards the hamlet of Cashtown, or the metropolis, on July 1st of 1863, because this is actually going to be one of the most populous places in Pennsylvania, because 2/3 of the Confederate Army are coming through here. As they're moving their way down here on July 1st, you notice it's pretty open. They're heading off towards Gettysburg. But if we swing back this way, we'll start looking back towards the Cashtown Pass off in that direction. This is a natural choke point having to come through the mountains. You're moving your army essentially on one road. This is going to be one great big traffic jam. Why? Because the Confederates run into John Buford's horsemen. Cicada.
It's a Brood 10 cicada.
It is. It was attacking. Vicious. Then you have the 1st Corps of the Union Army of the Potomac arrive. So that's going to start stacking us up. We're on a single road, so this is going to turn into one of the greatest traffic jams that will take place down through Cashtown and along what is now modern-day Route 30. It gets so bad that when Edward Johnson's divisions call to the front, they get out of this road and jump into an unfinished railroad cut you may have heard of on the first day of Battle of Gettysburg and start marching into town that way. That's how they're going to get into Gettysburg. But on July 1st, probably one of the most famous scenes will take place either in the Cashtown Inn or on the road right beside me, and that will be when Robert E. Lee arrives into this area. He's going to arrive here probably between 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning, and as he arrives here, he's going to find out that his new 3rd Corps commander, A.P. Hill, is inside of this place, sick, on a cot, as usual. So this is what the Cashtown Inn looks like, 1797, as I said. And basically, A.P. Hill, think about this, is going to walk out to his commanding officer and he's going to say, Lee's going to ask, what's the sound of the guns up ahead? And Hill's basically going to tell him, I don't exactly know. You really want to tell your boss that you have now sent an entire division, Henry Heath's division, down this road. You don't exactly know what's going on. You're sick inside of this house, or this inn, and now what you've done is touched off a battle. You've touched off one of the largest battles in American history. So that's what happens here. Robert E. Lee, I want you to think about this throughout the campaign. For those of you who don't like James Longstreet, those of you who like to talk about what ifs of the battle, why doesn't Robert E. Lee listen to his most senior subordinate, James Longstreet, more often? If you think about it, here comes A.P. Hill. He doesn't do well here on the first day. The second day he doesn't do well. He also meets, Robert E. Lee does, with Richard Ewell this night on the evening of July 1st. And Ewell and his subordinates are like, whoa, we can't attack here in this Culp's Hill sector. This is insane. But we won't pull our lines back to the other side of the hill, or the other side of the town. All right, you guys can stay there. All right, Hill, you did okay. And now we have James Longstreet enter the picture, the second in command of the Army. This is not the first go-around for him. He has been a corps commander for many battles. And when Longstreet says, I don't think this is a good idea, all of a sudden, Lee's like, no, we have to go around and attack the Union left. We have to attack Little Round Top. So think about that for a few minutes. You have Jeb Stuart off on his ride. You have A.P. Hill, who's not showing off very well. You have Richard Ewell, whose guys are like, oh, we don't want to attack, but we don't want to move. And now you have James Longstreet, who's also offering up his suggestion of, let's not attack on the Union left. Think about what's happening here with Robert E. Lee as a commander. Is he frustrated with his other subordinates and he's finally going to just take it out on Longstreet? Or, you know, was Longstreet right? Was Longstreet wrong? Now, in Longstreet's mind, he's always right, but that's beside the point. So just think about that. That's what's going to happen out here. But what you start to run into as well is this large traffic jam. And that is something to keep in mind. We're going to have to try to get wagons. We have to get men. We have to get materiel into Gettysburg for this battle. And that is what is going to be lined up here along the Cashtown Inn, or the Cashtown Road, leading into the Chambersburg Pike, leading into Gettysburg. Now, the Cashtown Inn also, or at least in Cashtown, we have a story that comes from Henry Heath. Allegedly, he's going to talk to his quartermaster. Henry Heath needs a new hat, and his quartermaster came through Franklin County into Adams County. He may have got a hat somewhere else. He may have got the hat here in Cashtown, but he's going to give Henry Heath this new hat because he says, man, I need a new hat. He gives him this big hat. It's too big. So he stuffs some paper down inside of it. He goes riding off onto the battlefield, Henry Heath does, and he rides off onto the battlefield on July 1st. A spent ball, meaning a ball that doesn't have quite the impact, hits that hat, hits Henry Heath in his thick skull. Amazingly, doesn't penetrate, but that paper that needed to make that hat a little bit thicker will save Henry Heath's life. So think about it. The hat that may have saved Henry Heath's life may have came here from Cashtown. Now, Cashtown, as we swing around one more time, Gary, this will turn into the backwater of the Army. But keep in mind, they have a lot going on back here. We're going to have wounded soldiers coming back through this area. We're going to use the bread ovens of the Cashtown Inn to feed the soldiers. We're going to use all the houses that we can to house troops. We're going to house any of the wounded that we can. And eventually, this will be one of the 2 retreat lines from Gettysburg. Once the battle concludes, and on July 4th, John and Bowdoin is charged with taking charge of the retreat from Gettysburg. And there's a War Department sign right over my shoulder talking a little bit about that. And Bowdoin's command will come down through here with the 17-mile wagon train of wounded soldiers, as well as Richard Ewell's 2nd Corps trains. Remember, Richard Ewell's 2nd Corps trains, that's his supply trains. That's also going to be all the booty, or a lot of the booty that they grabbed here in Pennsylvania. Some of it will be left down near Fairfield, about 8 miles from here, and it'll go along the Fairfield Road. Some of it will go right along the Chambersburg Pike. Another group of men will go along another route outside of Gettysburg, and that will, outside of Fairfield. We'll go down the Fairfield Road, and we'll also have the supply wagons coming down this road. This will be, I think I got backwards here. This will be the supply wagons of James Longstreet, A.P. Hill, Jeb Stuart's Cav Division, and then along the Fairfield Road, we'll have the wounded going down along the Fairfield Road, led by John and Bowdoin. We'll have the 17 miles of wounded, and then we'll have Richard Ewell's 2nd Corps, supply trains going out. In all, these wagons from all of the Army, all of our trains that we have going along, when we call them trains, we mean wagon trains. If you put them end to end together, they would span for roughly 57 miles. Think about that. That is a huge span. So we have to move 57 miles of men, horses, mules along the Cashtown Road, along the Fairfield Road to the south of us, modern day Route 116, through 2 mountain passes, then across the Potomac River, and eventually down into Virginia. So that story of Gettysburg started here on July 1st, and then we'll keep going through here on July 4th through the 5th as the Confederate Army retreats off in that direction. The Union Army will come through certain parts of the area, but most of the Union Army will move to the south, screening the south and the southwest, screening Washington and Baltimore. We will have troopers come out into this direction to feel out what's going on, horsemen to see what's going on out front. But the bulk of the Union Army will go from whence they came. The same way they came onto the battlefield, that's the way they will leave. Confederates do pretty much the same exact thing as they come off here. So if we want to take a quick pan around here, Gary, anything to add?
Yes, you want to grab the camera from me
Absolutely.
real quick? Good, good. So Kris is showing the Cashtown Inn. We understand it's in an ownership transition. We hope before long you'll be able to dine here and you'll be able to stay here and, you know, be where Robert E. Lee and A.P. Hill and James Longstreet were. So hopefully that'll happen before long. I only wanted to add too, lastly, just while we're talking about this march, it's one thing to say 30-mile march, 20-mile march, it's coming along this way. The soldiers wrote about this. They called it, even though this might be called gravel improved, a turnpike, sometimes even macadamized, even though that term wasn't around really yet, because macadam, as far as I know, or Telford hadn't gotten into a competition yet about which road would be best. Macadam won. So in any case, you know, they wrote about it. They called it the worst roads that could have been traveled over. And they talked about the constant stopping, which is worse than straight marching, they said. A lot of guys actually fell asleep on the march, just marching mechanically, only to be woken up when they run into the heels of the person in front of them. So when you come out to places like this, imagine, you know, the tramp, tramp, tramp of the soldiers, that's what they wrote about. That's what they did for most of the time during the Gettysburg campaign, not actually fighting. You know, lastly, what I would say is, you know, just remember that whatever unit you have, your favorite unit, they wrote about coming up here and whatnot. We're going to cover the retreat a lot more on other videos. Look for a guy in a green shirt and a guy in a blue shirt to be gesticulating one more than the other about some of these things. But, you know, Kris told the story about Harry Heath or with his hat. You know, there's another simpler story over near Chambersburg where a Texan simply broke ranks, walked up to somebody and grabbed the hat off his head, put it on, and kept walking. The guy, you know, not wanting to tangle with an entire army, just led him. And also, lastly, let me close with my favorite and raciest Civil War story of all, and that is some of these same Texans who saw a proud Pennsylvania woman with a flag wrapped around her as they marched down from Chambersburg to Gettysburg. And one man broke ranks and said, "You won't be doing that, ma'am." Excuse my Texas accent there. And she said, "Why? I am not afraid of you." He's like, "You misunderstand me." You know, it's just that us Texans aren't used to seeing that flag wrapped across breastworks without charging it. And with that, you have my raciest Civil War joke. Thanks to Kris for all this awesome interpretation. Look for more from the American Battlefield Trust, July 1st through 3rd, and then beyond as we cover the retreat and more. Thank you for watching, thanks for sharing, and thank you all for supporting battlefield preservation and education.